Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lender who helps it grow. Lance Sexton, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Lance, your daughter came up with a interesting, or not interesting, a timely, appropriate, a need-to-know article today, and I want to talk about that. And that is, Fed governor says small business needs access to affordable capital. And Lance, my comment is we read the Wall Street Journal and tune into our news shows and whatever, and it's all Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street this, big tech that, how important that is. But the bottom line is it's small business who drives the economy. And look what she says, Lance. In order to create jobs, small businesses need access to sufficient amounts of affordable credit and capital, which is fine with that, but she goes one step further. She says the share of businesses saying they rely on personal sources of capital is increased up to 2/3, and the problem is they're putting everything on the line, as opposed to when you're a corporate employee with these, you're not putting your house on the line, Lance.
No, there's that, and it's been the case, Bob. I was looking back at articles I've written over my lifetime, and back in it was 1998, Bob, I wrote an article for the University of Arkansas Center for Business and Economic Research about the importance of small business to the economy, and it remains that way. And what we do as small business lenders is critical to the success of the economy. Now, saying they need access to sufficient affordable capital. Well, Fed, I have a message for you. Lower the interest rates. We can achieve some of that.
It's interesting how the Fed works, Lance. I did not know this. I was invited by the Fed to speak in New York, which was awesome. They had the discount teller windows where back in the day the banks would show up to get their money from the Fed, but it is not public. They're not under government regulations. And I submitted my expense report, and the government fees do not apply to them. They treat themselves as private, which was fascinating to me.
Yeah, there's no per diem when you travel for the Fed.
Just whatever your expenses are, send it to us. We'll send you a check. Yeah.
But it's good to hear them acknowledge the importance of small business to the economy and job growth. It's been this way, guys, for my entire career, and probably long before I worked in this sector. If small businesses are employing people, the economy's doing well.
And what I like about is this next slide is a shout out to community banks. It says most businesses that seek external financing turn to banks, community banks and larger institutions. But the community banks remain an essential resource for many small businesses to access capital. These banks are focused on relationship banking. We've heard that in the past, and Lance, things go up and down, and in the pendulum, I suspect we're going back to that, which uniquely positions them to meet the challenges of assessing the creditworthiness of local small businesses. Back in the day, in the 50s, you're the banker in Iowa, and guess what, Lance? You know which farmers are successful and which aren't. Just back in the day, when you knew all your Main Street entrepreneurs, you know which ones were successful and which ones you were willing to lend money to, and you can throw in algorithms and this and that and whatever, but Lance, character is still the first C.
It absolutely is, and the importance of community banks to small businesses, Bob, it's always been there, but I think the challenge is banks have grown larger and larger, and they become regional banks. I think back when I first got out of college, Bob, and I worked for FDIC, and the first bank that I worked on that was closed was a $19 million total asset bank, Bob. And that's not even a branch anymore. But we still need community banks. We need community bankers and small business lenders. They know the people in their community and who's doing well, and the importance of the community bank in the economy is critical.
And now I'm I'm not taking umbrage with any of our friends at the
No.
larger institutions, because the model of a long-term branch manager certainly knows his or her community.
Absolutely.
But you see branches closing, except and I'm going to get in trouble for this. There's one bank, is it Morgan, who says, forget closing branches, we're opening up more branches. They're embracing this this model of relationship banking, and I will fact check myself, or someone dump a note. Someone's opening up 1,000 branches. Correct me on that.
Well, Bob, and I've experienced this throughout my career in small business lending. A small business owner wants a person to deal
Yes.
with. They want a loan officer to deal with. I was that way when I owned a small business, Bob. I wanted my loan officer to help me with my financing needs. And small business owners, I talked to my brother about this one time, and he was wanting to buy a big piece of equipment, and I told him what the process was like at some of the banks. And he's like, well, I'm just going to write a check for it. I'm not going to borrow the money. So the point of the matter is, small community, or all banks can do this. Bob, you made a wonderful point. A large bank can do this by having strong branch presence.
Relationship managers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But relationships with their bankers still mean a lot to small business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, pick up go up to the first slide. There we go. How number of small businesses has grown. By the way, what's interesting also, and I did not see in her speech where she made a note to say that, and we're losing a tremendous amount of community banks, but as you can see, the number of businesses that have grown. And 20 years ago, we were hovering a little over 20, and now we're over 30 million small businesses. And there are what, 27, if you have firms with employees, which is I would say that's you need to have an employee to be a small business, but that's 6 million versus 20,000 large businesses. The number of small employer firms has increased after a decline during the Great Recession. And go to the employee slide, Anna. And the net new jobs, look at that, 17 million over the last 25 years versus 10 million. And I believe, and those are annual figures, I believe. But small business, whatever the numbers are, by far outstrips larger companies in terms of net employment gain, and that we don't hear about that every day.
Well, and we should. It should be something that people are talking about on a daily basis, Bob. And I get tickled. I looked at that previous chart, and it showed the number of small business employers in 1998, which is when I wrote the article, Bob, about how important small business is to the economy and how small businesses create all new jobs. And it looks like I'm a soothsayer, Bob, because they had, in a 20-year period, 50% growth in the number of small businesses.
Every study I read, and you can do with what you want with statistics, but the numbers are always around 2/3 of all new jobs are created by small business. And that's why getting access to capital to that market segment is so critical. And that's where SBA plays a tremendous role in helping that out. And I believe from time to time, we need to look at a 30,000-foot view of what we're doing. And this makes an impact on creating jobs. We read other stories where, are we in a recession? Well, how can you have a recession where you have very low unemployment? That's just driving the economists crazy. But if you look at the numbers, go to the next slide, Anna. This is where the jobs are being created.
Well, every day, Bob, you read about a big company that, beefed up for the pandemic, that are laying people off. But on the other hand, you see small businesses, even in the small community I'm in, We have two small businesses that opened up, and I had the pleasure of talking to the owners of both of those small businesses. And one is adding 35 new employees, and one is adding about 20. In a community this size, those 55 new employees are key.
And Lance, are those minimum wage jobs?
Absolutely not, Bob. It's the idea of minimum wage to get an employee today is not really there anymore. They're having to pay well above minimum to get the kind of employees they need.
No, they're creating good jobs. And also when you read these statistics in that community you mentioned, those 35 people, guess what? They're going to be buying stuff, so they're going to be paying sales tax. I don't know if you pay sales tax in Arkansas, but they're certainly going to be paying income tax, and they're going to be paying property taxes when they buy property.
Yes.
So those jobs turn right around and go into the tax base. So very when you're talking about access to capital, kudos whenever SBA says we need to make things faster. We need to make sure it's affordable, and we make sure it's a fair program for both the lender and the borrower. And over that trajectory, overall, SBA has done a good job, I believe.
Well, and SBA is really pushing to get capital into underserved markets, to encourage lenders to make smaller loans, and some of the SOP changes that we've embraced over the last couple months are certainly going to do that. It's going to get more capital to more small businesses.
Anna, did you fact check me? Did you Google who's what big bank's adding on the branches?
I did not.
Oh, go ahead, do that real quick.
You got it.
See what's going on. Let's see. I think we have another chart. Go to the next chart while you're doing that. Oh, we're not.
Nope, that's all we have.
Oh, that's fine. Anyway, Delaney, good article. I think this is important from time to time to put everything into perspective. And she pointed out the risk is small businesses, while they're getting the access to capital, they're taking on a lot of more personal risk than a officer in a larger company does. Yeah. And what I appreciate in this statement is they realize the inequities of all she's pointing out is the inequities. Now, I'm not here to say we need not to start taking houses and not worry about collateral. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying it's an imbalance of the risk that the small business entrepreneur takes. And you know what, Lance? They're saying, fine, I believe in myself. My family believes in what I'm doing, and I'm going to go for it.
There's no doubt about that, Bob. And that's one of the empowering things about owning a small business is you've got all of your resources tied to the small business, but you either benefit greatly from your decisions, or you may feel some pain from your decisions. But entrepreneurs are a special group of individuals, and we need to do everything we can to make sure they have the resources to be successful. That's why, Bob, when we talk about SBA lending, I always am a big proponent. I always say you should loan the borrower enough money to stay in business, not just get into business.
Yes, and SBA supports you with that. They're all for that.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. In my underwriting training, I encourage all the underwriters. Yes, we need to know the statistics. We need to know the ratios, the numbers, and all that. But I say start out with your credit memo with the one unique factor of what makes this business special. One sentence. And all you have to do is ask the borrower, hey, why are you unique, and why are you going to succeed? And you're going to get an hour answer because they love to talk about it. But every business has a story, and personalize your credit memos and saying, hey, this is what this person does. Who they sell to, what they do, what is it, how many people they employ, how important they are to the community. Every small business every successful entrepreneur has a story. Every unsuccessful entrepreneur has a story, but get to know what those are. And from that, Lance, tomorrow, what is the benefit to signing up for this class? And more importantly, why do we need to do this?
Well, I think as a SBA participant lender, the only reason you go through the uh, process to get the SBA guarantee is you're relying on that SBA guarantee. And to be able to rely on the guarantee, your loan files need to be compliant with SBA's SOPs. Leslie Tripp is partnering with me on this, and one of the things that she's done that's fantastic for this webinar, they do loan reviews, SBA loan reviews, and they've compiled the most common 30 SBA loan file exceptions that exist in the loans they've reviewed over the last year. This is not 10 years ago. This is 2023 loan files that were reviewed and common exceptions. We're going to address those, and we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to take care of those. But having a good SBA loan file that's compliant is critical when the borrower defaults and you present for guarantee purchase. So I'm really excited about this webinar. Like I said, we can look at what SBA says will say are common exceptions, but these are actual loan files that were looked at last year, Bob. And
this is
and
not
these
someone's
are the
opinion. This
Yeah,
is
it's-
not, well, I think that, or these are actual fact case studies. So that
yeah, and
that's
some
great.
of these will be pretty simple, but but like I said, these are things we need to look for and address in our SBA loan files in order to protect the SBA guarantee.
One more housekeeping thing, be sure and go to our website if you want a free copy of a compensation survey for your job. Fill out the questionnaire. It is anonymous, and I use that to go and compile a full department study. But if you're a loan closer, we will send you that report for free when we complete it. Please have it in by Friday, because that will be our cutoff. And that we're the only one who does that. We've been doing, Lance, I've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah, Bob, and it's a great resource for SBA departments to have an idea of how they can be competitive at attracting the best talent. It's a great
Yep.
resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank
And
you,
then
everyone.
Bob, I also want to jump in here and say you were correct about JP Morgan opening more than 500 new branches. They
Whoa.
just announced that. So yeah, good fact there. You are correct.
Well, I was ready to cut us off in case I made that mistake. So kudos.
Great
Kudos
job,
for
Bob.
JP Morgan, and that's fascinating what they're doing, because a lot. Anyway, that's thank you very much for that. All right, that concludes the show. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great Monday.